He bet everything he had. Twice, the first time, it was a 3-hour Western no studio wanted. Hollywood called it Kevin's Folly. It won 7 Oscars. The second time, it was the Western he'd been chasing since 1988. That one nearly wiped him out. Same man, same genre, same impossible belief. So the question isn't whether Kevin Costner takes risks, the question is why he keeps needing to. Here's the strange part. Costner didn't start out as a man built for risk. He started as the kid who never quite belonged anywhere. Born in Compton in 1955 to an electrician and a welfare worker, his family moved constantly. New towns, new schools, new chances to be the outsider. Costner has said it wore down his confidence for years. He wasn't the golden boy. He played football and sang in the church choir. But by his own account, he never quite felt like he belonged in any room he was standing in. He studied business, not acting. He kept his first acting class a secret, even from his own newlywed wife. Then, in 1978, on a flight home from his honeymoon, fate sat him next to actor Richard Burton. Costner asked him, nervously, if he should really try acting. Burton gave him one piece of advice: go all in or don't bother. And this is where you start to understand Costner. That same feeling would keep showing up in the stories he fought hardest to make. A Union soldier who joins the Sioux, a rancher fighting to keep his land, a drifter chasing a dream nobody else believes in. Each one a man leaving somewhere he didn't belong in search of somewhere he did. It started on a plane, 30,000 feet over Mexico, with a stranger's advice he never forgot. For years, nothing about his acting career looked like the start of anything. Bit parts, shoestring budgets, films that sat on shelves for years before anyone saw them, a drive-in movie called Stacy's Nights, a small, unnoticed part in the nuclear disaster film Testament. This was the apprenticeship nobody talks about later, the years an actor spends becoming employable before anyone lets him become famous. Then, in 1983, came the role that should have changed everything. Costner filmed the role that should have changed his life. He played Alex in The Big Chill, the friend whose death brings the whole cast back together. Then, Kasdan cut every scene. Now imagine sitting in a theater, waiting for your own breakthrough, and realizing you've been erased from it. The Big Chill went on to earn 3 Oscar nominations. Costner isn't in a single frame of it. Most actors would have been furious. Costner wasn't. That decision changed everything. He took the cut with so much grace that Kasdan felt guilty for years. Guilty enough to write him an entirely new role in a Western he was developing next, Silverado. The role that should have buried him accidentally handed him the one that made him famous. Silverado cast him as Jake, a fast-talking cowboy alongside Kevin Kline and Danny Glover. It hit theaters in 1985. Almost overnight, Kevin Costner stopped being a name casting directors had to be reminded of. He became one they sought out. Over the next few years, 3 roles proved exactly who Costner was. The Untouchables proved he could carry authority, playing federal agent Elliot Ness against Al Capone's Chicago. Bull Durham proved he could be charming. Field of Dreams proved he could make sincerity feel masculine, not soft. By 1989, Kevin Costner had become Hollywood's safest bet, which made his next move even crazier. A 3-hour Western. Half the dialogue in Lakota, a Union soldier abandoning his own army to live among the Sioux. A story about a man leaving one world behind to belong in another. He shopped it to 3 respected directors first. Everyone wanted to cut something Costner refused to lose, so the job fell to him, a man who had never directed a single frame of film in his life. You'd think that alone would end the story before it started. No directing experience, his reputation on the line, his own money at risk, and no guarantee anyone would take him seriously again. To make it happen, Costner did the thing most actors never do. He wasn't just starring in the movie. He was carrying the blame if it failed. He and producer Jim Wilson built a company just to finance it his way. No safety net if the film failed. He brought in Lakota language coaches so the cast could learn entire scenes phonetically. He refused to shorten a single subtitle. Cast and crew chased weather and buffalo herds across the plains for months. They filmed largely on location in South Dakota, far from any studio backlog. Dances with Wolves opened in November of 1990 on a budget of roughly $20 million. It earned more than $400 million worldwide, 20 times the risk paid back in full. Then came the Oscars. Best Picture, Best Director. For a first-time director who'd staked his own bank account on the outcome, the joke everyone told for 2 years became one of the great underdog stories in Oscar history. Costner became one of the only people in Academy history to win Best Director on his very first film. For a little while, Kevin Costner couldn't do anything wrong. He'd been mocked for 2 straight years. Now he stood on stage, holding the exact award that mockery said he'd never touch. Dances with Wolves proved he could be right, but this is where the story bends, and what he learned from it would nearly destroy him. In 3 years, Costner made more money than most movie stars make in a lifetime. The kind of run that convinces a man his instincts can't be wrong. Robin Hood made him a box office king again, playing the outlaw returning from the Crusades. JFK cast him as a district attorney, chasing a conspiracy the whole country was already arguing about. The Bodyguard, opposite Whitney Houston, became one of the biggest hits of the decade. The soundtrack alone reportedly outsold most of his films combined. Then, almost immediately, he started giving Hollywood reasons to doubt him. Wyatt Earp lost money. Then came the big one. In 1995, Costner starred in Waterworld, shot almost entirely on the open ocean off Hawaii. Before filming started, the original director reportedly called Steven Spielberg for advice. Spielberg told him bluntly, "Never shoot on open water." Nobody listened. A floating set sank in a hurricane. The production grew so chaotic that Costner and director Kevin Reynolds clashed. By the end, Costner was reportedly deeply involved in getting the film across the finish line himself. The budget climbed past $175 million, the most expensive film ever made at the time. Costner reportedly put in around $22 million of his own money just to finish it. The press already had a nickname: Fish Tar. You'd think one disaster like that would teach a man to stop gambling. 2 years later, he doubled down again, directing and starring in The Postman. He played a drifter who accidentally restores a fractured America just by delivering mail again. It bombed even harder. Critics called it one of the decade's most humbling misfires. After Waterworld and The Postman, Costner didn't lose his career overnight. He lost something worse: the assumption that his instincts were untouchable. Waterworld and The Postman proved he could be wrong. For a decade, he'd been the one person in Hollywood who was always right. Now he was just another director who'd gotten it wrong twice in a row. So he did the only thing left to do: he got smaller. But here's what makes Costner different. He didn't vanish after failure. Hollywood stopped treating him like a sure thing. But Costner was learning something useful. He didn't need to be the biggest star in the room anymore. He just needed the right story to find him. He stopped chasing the leading man throne he used to own. He started taking work that interested him more than any studio's marketing department. A washed-up golf pro chasing redemption in Tin Cup, a grieving widower in Message in a Bottle. Later, a quieter western he directed himself. Open range, no fanfare, no blockbuster ambition. None of these roles made him the center of Hollywood again. But pause on that for a second, because these smaller roles did something else. They kept him working long enough for something bigger to find. Even Costner himself didn't know yet what that would be. In 2012, he took a History Channel role playing a mountain patriarch. He was locked in a real, generations-long blood feud against the neighboring McCoy family. A story about a man who'd rather lose everything than back down. It won him an Emmy, his first sign that television, not film, might be where his second act was waiting. 2 years later, almost nobody noticed, he quietly put his own money behind another small film, Black or White. The third time he'd wagered on himself like this. Nobody was counting yet. But the pattern was already there, if you knew where to look, and that quiet stretch would end up saving his career. Because nobody guessed what came next. A cable drama about a Montana ranching family. The kind of show most people assumed would come and go without a trace. That show was Yellowstone. Costner played John Dutton, a rancher fighting developers, politicians, and his own children, all for the one thing he had left: the land itself. It premiered in 2018 to modest ratings. Quiet, easy to overlook. The kind of launch nobody expects to still be running 6 years later. John Dutton worked because he felt like the older version of every Costner character. Stubborn, wounded, territorial, convinced the land was worth fighting for. For the first time since Dances with Wolves, nearly 3 decades earlier, Kevin Costner was the single reason people showed up again. A Golden Globe followed, his third. The franchise spun off prequels 1883 and 1923, each one pulling in millions more viewers. One ranch drama had expanded into an entire television universe. 6 straight years, one face holding it all together. Yellowstone gave Costner everything back. And even as it climbed, there was one project he had never fully let go of. Not once, in over 30 years. He called it Horizon. And it was about to force the real question of his entire career. Then he made the one decision fans still argue about. He left the biggest show on television for a movie almost no one wanted to finance. For an actor who'd already lost one career to his own stubbornness, was this the bravest decision of his life? Or the same old mistake, dressed up as destiny? To fans, it looked like a feud. To Sheridan, it was timing. 2 men who both needed to go do their own thing at once. Sheridan later said plainly he'd never had an issue with Costner that a phone call couldn't fix. To Costner, it was simpler than that. He'd already made his next bet, and Yellowstone was standing in the way. That bet was Horizon, an American saga, 15 years of American history across 4 planned films. It follows settlers, soldiers, and native tribes, all clashing over the same stretch of frontier land. No studio would fully fund it. So, just like the first time, Costner put everything on the line again. Only this time, it was literal. He mortgaged 10 acres of coastal land in Santa Barbara, land he'd bought in 2006 to build his final home. "I did it without a thought," he told Deadline in 2023. He reportedly put close to $38 million of his own cash into the saga. The total cost, roughly $100 million. He described pushing this exact story into the middle of the table 3 times before in his career. Each time, he lost his nerve. This was attempt number 4. He wasn't backing down. He'd said before, more than once, that he'd never gamble his own money on a movie again. And then he did it anyway, bigger than ever. Ask yourself this: had he learned anything at all? Horizon, an American saga, Chapter 1 premiered at Cannes in May of 2024 to a mixed reaction. The box office was a failure, less than $40 million worldwide against roughly $50 million in costs according to trade reports at the time. Chapter 2 was already filmed and finished, but after Chapter 1 underperformed, its theatrical release was reportedly pulled from the calendar. Chapters 3 and 4 remain uncertain, with the larger saga still waiting on the money and momentum to continue. But here's the part theaters never saw coming. After its theatrical failure, Chapter 1 found a second life on streaming. It climbed charts in a way box offices never allowed. A theatrical bomb, quietly becoming a streaming hit. Costner doesn't see any of this the way outsiders do. He said it isn't gambling. Not the way Vegas is gambling, it's backing the love of a story, and he's never pretended otherwise. In 1990, everyone said his gamble would end his career before it started. It built his career instead. In 2024, everyone said the same gamble would define his legacy for the worse. It nearly broke him financially. To this day, he still hasn't stopped trying to finish it. So what happens when the dream is unfinished? When the man who's always gone all in still has 2 chapters left to prove it was worth it? Most people lose once and learn to stop. Costner lost, waited, and made the bet bigger. He isn't addicted to winning, he's addicted to proving the story was worth the risk. So here's the real question. Was Dances with Wolves genius, or was it just luck, wearing a very good disguise? And is that same man still in there, somewhere inside Horizon, waiting for one more roll of the dice to land? Kevin Costner has never once needed Hollywood's permission to commit to something. That's exactly what made him a legend. It's also exactly what nearly cost him everything. Twice. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you want the full story of how Yellowstone almost never got made at all, that's the video to watch next. Subscribe if you want more stories about the risks that quietly built and nearly broke some of Hollywood's biggest careers.